We're talking about chemical equivalence, and that starts with trying to understand that a little better by basically comparing apples to kiwis. Hopefully, you're in agreement that an apple is a little bit larger than a kiwi, it weighs a little bit more. And if we were talking about having the same number of apples and kiwis, that wouldn't mean we'd have the same mass. And that's due to the fact that the individual apples and individual kiwis do not weigh the same as each other. So if we had a situation where I had 600 grams of apples, given the fact that, let's say that every apple is 100 grams and every kiwi is 80 grams. So if I had 600 grams of apples, what would be the kiwi equivalent in grams so that the same number of fruit was in each situation? So if each apple weighs 100 grams and I have 600 grams, hopefully it's not that surprising to you that there's 6 apples. So basically what this question is asking is how much would it weigh to have the exact same number of kiwi? So if you had 6 kiwi, what would be the mass there? So what we're going to do is basically convert the grams that were given to a number. And then whatever that number is, we're going to convert to the grams of the other fruit, in this case a kiwi, to grams. So we had 600 grams of apples. We know each apple weighs 100 grams, so that's a total of 6 apples. We also, therefore, would need 6 kiwi, since we want them to have the equal numbers. And the question is, well, how much does 6 kiwi weigh? Well, if each kiwi weighs 80 grams, then that's 480 grams of kiwi. So at the end of this, we have 2 masses, 2 weights, 600 grams and 480 grams, that represent equal pieces of fruit. So if we do this in moles and elements, the element mass is provided for you on the periodic table. And so let's say I had 4 grams of helium. Well, 4 grams of helium is the same as 1 mole of helium. And if I wanted to know how much was the molar equivalent of nickel, well, that would mean what does 1 mole of nickel weigh? If I have 1 mole of helium, the question is, all right, well, what would 1 mole of nickel be equivalent to? And that means I have 4 grams of helium. I would have 58.7 grams of nickel. So just like with the apple, right? If 1 apple weighs 100 and 1 kiwi weighs 80, if I had 100 grams of apple, how much would be the equivalent number of kiwis? It would be 80 grams, because that's by definition how many there are. That's basically what this is saying too. 1 mole of helium is 4, and 1 mole of nickel is 58.7. All right, so the same process occurs. You're going to turn grams to moles instead of grams to the number of fruit. You're going to turn grams into moles, and then you're going to take moles and bring it back to grams of the other thing. So if I said you have 8 grams of helium, what's the molar equivalent of nickel? 8 grams of helium is where I'm starting. That's my given. I need to convert that to moles. And you may recall, if we look at our little highway of right here, right? If I got to go from grams to moles, I need to go to the periodic table and divide by what's on that periodic table. So if I need to figure out how many moles there are in 8 grams of helium, I'm going to go to the periodic table. I'm going to see that the mass of helium is 4 and divide 8 by 4 to get 2 moles. And then I want the same number of atoms, so 2 moles of nickel as well, and I want to know how much that has a mass of. So 2 moles equals 2 moles. The 2 moles of nickel, I'm now going to multiply by the mass to get grams. And 2 times the 58.7 gives me 117.4 grams of nickel. So 8 grams of helium would have the same number of atoms as 117.4 grams of nickel. And that's basically what we're doing here. So if I asked you for 78 grams of sulfur, what is the equivalent of carbon? I'm going to start with my grams given of sulfur. I'm going to go to the periodic table, divide by that number, the mass number, to get it to moles. And so that means I have 2.44 moles of sulfur. How many moles of carbon would that need to be? The same number. And then the next question is, well, how much would that have a mass of? What would be the mass of that same number of moles. So I'm going to multiply 2.44 by 12. And I learned that 29.3 grams of carbon is equivalent mole-wise to 78 grams of sulfur. All right, so this last example, we have 50 grams of strontium. So I guess I'm actually drawing this one. So we have 50 grams of SR, right there. And I just broke my own rule that you're not supposed to use capitals. There we go. I need to convert that to moles. And to convert that to moles, I need to use this mass here, the 87.6 grams in 1 mole. And that'll tell me how many moles of strontium I have. So 50 divided by 87, 87.6 is 0.57. So 50 grams represents 0.57 moles of strontium. Well, I also want that same amount of arsenic. So I want 0.57 mole of arsenic. And the question is, how many grams is that going to weigh? Well, now I want to take the mass of arsenic and put that on the top. And that's for 1 mole of arsenic. And if I multiply 0.57 times 74.9, that gives me 42.6 or 7 basically grams of arsenic. So these are molar equivalents. If I had 50 grams of strontium that has the same atoms as 42.7 grams of arsenic.